this is a critical part of your education journey. If you want to prepare for an SCA sensory course, intermediate or professional, if you want to join a Q grader course, studying this in advance will help you so much, because when you study this in advance, you lock that knowledge into your mind, and then you can recall that information when it comes time for you to take your course. You don't want to walk in blind. You want to have all of this knowledge, all of the study, so that you can just bring your senses to the table and you can recognize what you've studied previously. This kit, 36 aroma vials, is to give you that core baseline of the most commonly found aromas in coffee around the world. All right, so let's jump into the next 9. We are going to look at honeyed, leather, basmati rice, toast, malt, maple syrup, caramel, dark chocolate, and roasted almonds. Honey, leather, basmati rice, toast, malt, maple syrup, caramel, dark chocolate, and roasted almonds. Now, the sugar browning and toasty area of this kit starts to get pretty challenging. And if you're in the course and you have to identify like 3 of these and distinguish between them, this is an important area just to really classify and really have a game plan, understanding these before you go into your course. So let's look at them. Number 19 is not bad at all, honeyed. Honeyed smells like honey. Honeyed is the adjective for a coffee that smells like honey. And it is still very much a floral group, although we're moving, it's animal and floral. It's a classy aroma. It's not as grand or classy as cedar, apricot, or fresh butter, but still, it only occurs in the very finest coffees. It is more often found in the grounds than in the brew, and it's stronger in Arabicas than in Robustas. So honeyed. And that's a great one to use, and you can find that there are different types of honey, and if you get fresh honey or processed honey or raw honey, if you can get some really fine local artisan honey, you can get this real sweet floral bouquet off of your honey, and you can know what this number 19 smells like. Number 20. Number 20 is leather. This one here may give you good memories or bad memories. You know, like maybe you went with your father to the store and you got a cowboy hat or you got belts or whatever, you know, like I'm a farm boy. So leather will bring up some positive aspects, and others, it has a very animal smell, right? Because leather comes from the hide of an animal. And so it is part of our aromatic taints in the aroma group animal. So the smell of leather in coffee is a rare sign of quality, elegance, authenticity. It's a distinguishing feature in mochas, that Yemen mocha, Indonesian mocha, these different kind of mocha, Java mocha. Sorry, there's lots of mochas in my book. I am not sure which one they're referring to right here. But this leather, it comes out in this like rich, deep, you know, it's kind of like vanilla is on the sweet side of leather, and then there's leather. So, but this can also turn bad because it's close to animal, and we're going to look at some of those other ones. But leather is in there, and 20 is leather. 21 is basmati rice. Basmati rice is part of the toasty cereals family. So basmati rice is an odor that one gets at the beginning of roasting. The problem is to distinguish it from the other scents generated by roasting. Training is necessary. All right, so basmati rice has this kind of sweet, just like Indian, Southeast Asian rice. Basmati rice will be kind of that grain cereal toasty, and you'll smell it early on in the roast, and it may still be present later, especially depending on your roasting style. So 21, you need to be able to identify basmati rice when you have a flavor vial on the table. Number 22 is toast. Toast is quite easy. It smells like toasted bread. Now don't mix it up with rice, because this one actually smells a lot like rice. We cook a lot of white rice in my family. But toast is part of the sugar browning family, and it's the smell of toast in coffee. This is one of the toasty nuances that coffee roasters prize most, and it is a sign of skillful roasting. If the coffee were to be roasted a second longer, this rich, refined scent would be lost, giving way to more assertive or even aggressive notes. These aromas of toasted bread blend beautifully with those of butter in many coffees grown at high elevations, butter and toast. So here's the aspect of toast that we need to recognize, as they mentioned there, as a roaster. There's a fine line getting that fully, finely roasted aspect of coffee and then moving into burning or charring or some of the deterioration that can happen in roasting. But you'll smell this during the roasting process. You'll also smell it in your roasted coffees when it's fresh, when it's volatile. Now, I should interject right now. These are volatile aromas, aromatics. And that's why we grind fresh and we cup quickly after the roasting, that 24 to 48 hour period, and we smell our fragrance and we brew the coffee quickly, because some of these aromas are extremely volatile. Some of these aromas will disappear after 48 hours, or some of these will disappear after grinding after 2 minutes. And so some of these are much more difficult to identify than others, which are less volatile or stick around longer. Number 23. Number 23 is malt. Malt is nice. Malt is interesting. It is toasty, cellulosic. Okay, so we're moving into kind of like the cellulose matter of the coffee bean, if they say cellulosic, but it's also pyrolytic. So there's different ways to read these charts. You have the pyrolytic right here, just like you have resinous here, and you have spicy here. So these 1, 2, 3 columns. And then you have the families, just like I mentioned with malt, this aroma group is toasty and cellulosic. So toasty, it's a scent. This scent is a sign of a light roasting, popular with some markets, or even insufficient roasting. It's a permanent feature that is difficult to recognize because it varies so much according to how high the malt is roasted, and because it coexists harmoniously with other roasted aromas. It would be a good idea to commit the sample to memory as a point of reference. So that's interesting the way it's described in this. Malt, sometimes I think of like a dark roasted grain, like a malty beer. You have Guinness, these black beers that are used, they use a dark roasted malt. So this malt though, as they're saying, is part of that kind of roasting process. Again, toasty, this is part of the toasty family, so it's part of that roasting process. And it may be a sign in some of the light roasting, where you have this cereal grain-like, right? Number 24, we need to remember 24 is maple syrup. So you'll hear things like burnt sugars or brown sugar or sugar cane, but it's maple syrup. You're not going to find other sugars on this on these Art of Aroma Perception or in the Le Nez du Café. So 24, maple syrup. If you grew up in North America and you had pancakes or waffles, you know the smell of maple syrup. It has that nice, sweet, woody, spicy. It's an amazing flavor enhancer because its influence on other aromas is so strong. Get to know it because it is a good indicator of the degree of roasting. So this does come out in some of those darker roasted caramelized sugar aspects. It's part of the resinous group, just like cedar and black currant. Maple syrup. Yeah, I think it compares quite nicely with black currant and cedar. So this is where you can look at those family groups as columns on the Art of Aroma Perception in Coffee. 24, maple syrup. 25. So sweet. 25 is caramel. 25 caramel doesn't need a lot of description. If you've smelled caramel, we get caramel when we melt butter and sugar together, and you can make homemade caramel, right? Caramel is that toasty family, caramely family. This is one of the most important features of coffee. The scent is a powerful flavor enhancer, and it's an important part of the aroma of coffee. It is most noticeable and very typical in a brew of Arabica. I would say in almost all coffees, this is one of our core components. When you blend this in with others in the Lene du Café, you are going to have caramel stand out. Number 25. Now the challenge with caramel, you want to make sure you distinguish it with that fresh butter, which is kind of that butterscotch sweetness, and some of these other roasted nuts that we'll be getting into. Caramel. Number 26, we've got one more to go here on this line, dark chocolate. Okay, so not milk chocolate, not chocolate, dark chocolate. Dark chocolate. It smells very toasty, and it is part of the toasty, chocolatey family. This is one of coffee's main features. We might even be tempted to say that there is a good deal of chocolate in the smell of every coffee. They do indeed have many things in common. They both have beans as fruit. They grow in the shade of tropical areas, and their aromas are coaxed out by roasting, and they are both said to be stimulants. This is a link between coffee and chocolate, and it's twice as striking in the grounds as in the brew. So you're going to be smelling it more in the fragrance of the grounds, even more than the brew. Dark chocolate, number 26. You can find dark chocolate in many things: cocoa, cacao, dark chocolate candies, dark chocolate bars, but it's that dark chocolate. And that's our baseline. That's what the Lene du Café is for, giving us foundation for all the other flavor groups and descriptions that we use. Number 27, roasted almonds. It's going to be hard here. We have several nuts coming up, roasted nuts. Roasted almonds, I like to think of and remember in this roasted nut family as being kind of the lightest to me. I think of them in terms of roast level, or in terms of like how high up the flavor notes are, and roasted almonds are very nice. They're also lighter than the other ones. This is toasty or dried fruits. It almost has that kind of apricot amaretto quality to it. Amaretto comes from the seed of apricots, which is very similar to an almond. So, sorry, that was an aside. We're focused on roasted almonds, number 27, toasty. This is one of the most attractive scents when around a coffee, and it combines amazingly well with the aroma of chocolate. Yeah, chocolate and roasted almonds. Again, this just takes practice, but you kind of identify this. This is kind of close to the caramel for me. It's just a little bit more vegetal, almond-like, roasted almond, number 27. Okay, so we just did row number 3, and I'll run through those real quick, and then we'll jump into row number 4. Row number 3 was honeyed, leather, basmati rice, toast, malt, maple syrup, caramel, dark chocolate, and roasted almonds. Getting confused here with my hand signals. All right, finally, we're going to go to the last 9. These are the last 9 of the Lene du Café. This is part of Jean Lenoir's kit for us as sensory professionals in coffee. If you're getting ready for a Q Grader course, if you're getting ready to take SCA Intermediate or SCA Professional, wave everyone, charts. Yes, I will give charts and other things. I'll attach them here. I'll attach them to the YouTube. I am filming this live on Instagram. Also, it will be on YouTube, so that you can get some of these handouts and charts, and you can start to memorize and make connections. This is something that you can study quite easily with these 36 aroma vials. Maybe you don't have access to a kit. That's okay, because you have access to a grocery store or Amazon or the local market where you can get spices, and you can start to prepare. You can get at least 18 of the 36, if not, 75% of the 36. And you can really start to remember and understand how all of these art of aroma perception in coffee and the coffee flavor wheel, how they were developed from this sensory kit. So if you want to take a sensory intermediate or professional with me or with another, I have prep materials at howtocoffeepro.com. That's where I put my SCA training materials. And more than anything, I've got all kinds of free stuff on YouTube and my blog. I'd love to help you all grow. Sensory is hard. People are afraid to develop their sensory skills. But the reality is, it's just first getting it in your brain, watching a video like this and trying to remember, okay, I'm going to remember these 36. And then when you encounter them, when you're eating, when you're at the grocery store, when you're at the market, and you encounter these smells, you say, that's clove-like, that's black currant, that's pepper, right? And you start to think, okay, that's resinous, that's sugar browning, that's vegetal. And you start to develop the core language that coffee professionals and quality control professionals for our specialty coffee industry use around the world. So that's my goal, to help you out in that regard. Thanks for joining me.